Hey everyone, for today's video what I'd like to do is just do a quick review and initial impression of the Lone Rider MOTOPANNIERs and the MotoCase, the top case. For full disclosure, Lone Rider have agreed to work in partnership with me and sponsor me. So I did not pay for these MOTOPANNIERs, they were sent to me by Lone Rider. So what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough of my initial impressions of the MOTOPANNIERs. I've been using these MOTOPANNIERs now for around about 10 days. I've done a relatively large tour through Japan. I've come from Tokyo all the way down south to Kyushu. In total, I've done around about 2,500 kilometers, which gives me a great idea of how they perform and what the key features are from these MOTOPANNIERs. So what I needed to do first is I needed to disassemble the Touratech top case, which I initially had purchased myself, and also their rack that they had provided me for that top case. What I did there is I used only the tools, so the Torx key, the spanners that Lone Rider provided me. I've seen various videos out there of other YouTubers, and everyone is, first thing they do is they grab a power tool. I don't have power tools, so I wanted to do a test whether or not it actually is feasible to use it. The Torx key worked fantastic. It took me a little bit longer though. I think normally it'd probably take about an hour to disassemble everything and the top case rack on as well. For me, it took me about 2 hours because I was doing everything by hand, but it works. The only thing I would warn you about is if you ever slip once with that Torx key that they provide you, stop. Find another Torx key because you'll start slipping every other bolt that you're trying to drive in using that Torx key, right? So that's the first thing I noticed. I by accident slipped once trying to get through in one of the tight positions, and yeah, that basically buggered Torx key, so I thought stop. So I used an alternative Torx key. They give you a couple in the setup, right? So you've got some failover as well. To set it up, you've got to then disassemble the racks, the side racks of BMW. And on the left-hand side here, on this one, they have a connector. I think it's probably for their BMW OEM cases that they use that you can power things inside. You've got to take both the seats off. And then there is a little rack underneath here as well. And that rack needs to be also disassembled. And then you'll find a connector that you can disconnect under the pillion seat, disconnect that, and then cut loose the zip tie that is connecting and holding the wire for the OEM rack. Disconnect that, cut that, and pull it out, and then it's all free. And then start installing the Lone Rider rack, right? So not an issue, that went in there quite easy. So what Lone Rider have done as part of their design, what they've done is they've made a 34 MOTOPANNIER for the right-hand side, obviously because you've got the exhaust pipe here, just to make it, to give it a little bit more space for the exhaust, for the cooling, and it doesn't get infected by the heat. And then on the left-hand side, they've got the 37-litre pannier. So from that perspective, it's quite easy. You can't make any mistakes. It just goes onto one side. Now, the rack itself, it curves nicely around the exhaust, and it also keeps it far enough away. So I've also then, living in a big city, is what I did for myself is I wanted to make sure that the panniers aren't wider than the GSA crash bars, right? So I did a quick visual check by basically standing in front of the motorbike and looking perpendicular down, and it's equal, right? So someone like me who lives, like I said, in a large city in Tokyo, who does need to lane filter quite often to get through the traffic, there is no issues. If you can make it through here, you're definitely going to make it through. So talking a little bit about the case itself and the inner bags. So what I've chosen as part of this trip, I've chosen just to keep the back lock continuously locked, and I'm only using the front lock to open up the case, right? So it's quite easy to open it up. And you see here, I've also got my tools on top of the inner bag, just in case I need quickly, and I can get to them as well, right? So these bags, they are awesome. So they fit in, they come out and fit in so easy. They slide back in nicely as well. The only thing you want to make sure is when you're filling them up, you don't basically exceed the form of the bag. And when you've closed the bag as well, just open it up a little bit and put 2 knees on it. Obviously, if you've got anything fragile in there, you've got to be careful. So let the air out and then it'll slide back in again as well, right? So that's just my tip at the moment. But yeah, you see it basically push it back in and it just sits down nicely. I've got this little bag here just sitting on top that's basically just got all my tools, my handy tools that I need at times. And then you just press down on it, open it up, it locks, right? So easy to open and close these. That's what I love about this. Press down, boom, that's it. It's locked. So that's the smaller side. That's the 34 litre. And on the 37 litre, I've got stuff that I use more often. So I might even make a decision at times, basically just to keep stuff like this locked away overnight. I don't even have to take it into the hotel room. And here you'll see on the lid of the MotoPanniers, they give you the ability to be able to have all of these small little bags where you can put all of your little items that you want. This is so well thought of. This is, yeah, awesome. I've got here the lock for the helmet at the moment. So I got these probably about 2 or 3 days before I left for my big motorbike trip to the southern part of Japan. But yeah, I can see myself slowly, bit by bit, adding my, tools and stuff like that to this. Yeah, just so well designed. They also have the ability, I've seen on their website, where you can actually add like a manifold. You can put in between this to elevate it a little bit more, to give a little bit more space. I don't have a need for that at the moment. I've got enough clothes in here for 10 days for me to be able to suit it, that perfectly fine. But yeah, if you need more space, if you've got a pillion on the back and you feel like all extra liters would help. So what that does, it just elevates everything by a few inches as well, right? So I've seen that on their website. So that's a great feature. And it just locks. The quality of the locks, the quality of the equipment, the hard case. I actually touched here on the back. I touched it on the ship on one of the ferry rides. You can't see anything on the side of the case here that it's damaged or whatever. Oh, there's a bit of white paint from the ship on the case. But apart from that, yeah, it's amazing. Just awesome. The great feature about this as well, you can add like additional bags. You can buy bags from Lone Rider to add on the side. If you feel that you want to have like some extra fuel, you can add it on the front of the back of the moto pannier. It's out of the way. It doesn't bother anyone, right? So they also give you plugs to be able to remove these. I'm never going to remove these. I think that they're great. For someone like me who at times probably wants different camera angles, this is great. I could probably just attach here one of those, DJI mounts or whatever and just have a different view or a different angle of how I'm shooting my footage as well, right? So I don't have no need for that. And then you've got the top case. So the top case as well, amazing to set up. I really like this feature where you've got the ability to be able to leave it open at, 30 degrees, 90 degrees, all the way at 180 degrees almost. I like it so I can use this as kind of like a table to set up my drone. If I want to do a drone shot, I can use it just as a working table. You obviously don't want to, put too much weight on it, but this is that idea that they've had basically just to keep this like a bit of a stiffer hinge to allow you to use it as a working table. That's amazing. I think that's a great idea. What they've done as well, they've given us these little lights. You can click on these lights. So I've used this a couple times in the evening when it was late at night that I arrived at the hotel. Double click, you click on it once, you've got some lights. You can work in here. That's awesome. That's great. And so there's also one important thing I should mention as well, right? So that's the locking system and the locking mechanism that they've got. They issue the keys for the panniers to be able to lock at the front and back, and also to lock them to the motorbike. The top case can be locked to the rack, and these can be locked to the rack as well. And they also give you the option to be able to marry up the lock sequence to your BMW key. I don't have any need for that. It doesn't bother me to have this Lone Rider specific key on my motorbike keys. I've got two sets of keys. I've got my house keys, obviously my daily use keys. So I've got a key from Lone Rider on here, and I've got a key also on the motorbike keys attached as well. So they're separate. So for me, yeah, not a rush. I can probably do that in the future, but I didn't feel it necessary for this trip because I think they're quite sturdy. I think they're great keys. They don't bother me in my pocket. But again, if you would like to marry up your keys to your BMW key, that they give you a whole manual and a whole instruction on how to do that. There's a huge array of installation videos that they've created to be able to set up the MotoPanniers and the top case. Like I said, it doesn't bother me. I'm just using the Lone Rider key set. One key fits all. Also as well, so okay, let me explain a little bit about installing the top case. So we have in Japan what we call ETC, which is for the toll gates. Your card reader is sitting in there. So that was always exposed, and I didn't like that about that. So what's great about this mount that they've got for the top case from Lone Rider, it's really closed off this back end of the motorbike. But most importantly, Lone Rider give you, depending upon the motorbike model that you've got, they give you this kind of like rubber grommet that sits really nice on top here, which keeps everything dry where the rack sits. So I thought that was, yeah, that's a great feature. I don't have to worry about any water protruding into the card reader there. I initially wasn't a fan of, hard cases, specifically the cases that you see, which are the silver ones, whatever. I was like, I don't know about it. I don't know if I want that on my motorbike. What I've really noticed with having these side panniers on the motorbike now, obviously the weight coming from the top of the motorbike has obviously gone way down here, right? So you've got a lower gravity point when it comes to where you store all of your equipment, which has changed the whole dynamic for me of cornering, of where I can be a little bit more aggressive and throwing the motorbike around in the corners, left, right. It's so much more easy flowing. Yeah, so I think overall, that's my initial impression. The top case, the MotoPanniers. I've got another multi-day motorbike ride coming up next weekend where I'm out with the guys. We're going for a couple of days. We're heading from the East Coast to the West Coast. I'm going to use them again. So, I hope this is useful to anyone out there who's considering buying these MotoPanniers and the top case. It's a big, thumbs up for me. I think it looks great because I've got the black rims. I've got a lot of black on the motorbike. So I think it just finished it off. The comments I've had from friends who ride with me, I sent the photos, is like, wow, Arch, they look awesome on your motorbike. I've had people at service stations walk up to me if they can take a picture. Obviously of the motorbike, not of me, but take a picture of the motorbike because they feel it just looks awesome. It looks big and rugged. So thanks for tuning into this one. Thank you very much to the people of Lone Rider for sending these to me and sponsoring me on this. And I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.